Hi, everyone. Good morning. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I don't know how happy today is, but you wake up, you feel the vibe of what's going on, um, and you try to settle into using the tools and gifts that you have to shift into something that's a little bit lighter and brighter. Um, so I haven't been in here in a while. My apologies. I've been kind of caught up with a few other projects that are on the table. And to be honest, this was not an easy week, not even considering what's happening outside in the world right now with the the marches and the other things that are happening, the riots. I have been on a little journey. I think if you're in the group, you've seen I posted a little bit initially. I was really appalled. Now, mind you, I don't usually follow the news, but I opened up the news the night my husband said there were riots in the streets. And I'm like, wow, what's going on? So, we share, each of us shares only based on what we know, what we experience, what our interest level is. And some of us are really, really into the politics, and others are not, like me. I'm not. I just want to live happy, joyful, and free. That's like my little recipe for love in this world and for myself in this world. But I realize we are a collective of people, and there are things happening in this country that are part of a transformation, an uncomfortable transformation. All right. Um, so I took notice and I listened to some people who gave me, I had some like really major people that I know in the community and that are very actively engaged with um, societal, racial issues. They're more engaged in them than I am by far, right? They're not afraid to speak and riot and share, which is fine. That's what they're there. That's what their interest is. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot, and had me like reconsider and then look further and go within too to see, what actually does happen. What do we actually think? Is what we think skewed one way or another based on what we've heard, what we've experienced? And it is. There's no way we cannot be skewed. We know that, we stand for something, right? But we may not always catch where our lens is a little clouded, a little biased, a little. It's natural. And I'll be honest with you. I had my son went to college, and he grew up where in the suburbs. He grew up at a school with mainly white people, right? Because that's where we purchased our house. That's where he's going to school. But we don't. It's not our way to speak in any way negative or positive. We don't talk politics. I should stop this from notifications. We don't we don't talk politics within the family. So it's interesting because my middle son has gotten very, very interested in the topic. He was like that. He was a very focused on things before he went, very, very smart. But when he went to college, he has really come face to face with a lot of uh, talk, racial talk, discrimination, white, I forget what the word is, white privilege or whatnot, and a lot of the financial topics, economic topics. I mean, he gets into it, and God bless him. But he came home and he's like, you know what, Mom? If I wasn't racial before, I think I'm racial now in some way. I have had such a bad taste in my mouth about the anger being thrown at me and thrown at me and thrown at me by different people and the mentality that they have. Now, mind you, I'm not saying he's 100% right because he's looking at it through his lens, but this is the result coming from a young child who didn't grow up in in any sort of way, who would never discriminate. For Pete's sakes, He's like the kid that attracted all of the other kids who didn't belong anywhere, and he would help them, right? So it's a little, I'm just trying to give you a framework of what this can look like in and each on each side of the equation. When some side goes too much to the left or the other side goes too much to the right, then all of a sudden we're pitted against one another, and that is what um, is not ideal, but maybe it's par for the course and it's par for what's happening. So I just wanted to kind of touch base here today. And it's funny, I have my handy dandy book, right, that I like to the Book of Light. I like to grab this book, which you're going to see backwards when you try to read it. It's the Book of Light, and see if there is some kind of a message that Spirit wants to share. And of course, I'm like, I open this up and I'm like, oh gosh, you want me to talk about what? I'm like, so I'm going to read this to you very carefully, and then I'm going to kind of go over it from what I'm grasping from it, because it's pretty, it's a direct hit on what's happening right now in society. Um, but it's coming from a book. I didn't actually, it's coming from Spirit. Spirit wants to share this message. It's wisdom, right? It's awareness, because to everything there's a storyline that needs to be revealed, that needs to be cleared up. And we're here to actively hold space or speak or take action to make changes that address this. So the title is victimization. Victimization, right? So victimization has a certain side that's victimizing, right? Technically, and a certain side that's being victimized. Two sides. A child cries to call attention to himself. This is something we all agree on. It is self-evident. A child cries, they get hurt. They get hurt, they cry to call attention for someone to come nourish them, right? The child cries because he is afraid of pain, of what hurts him, or he feels pain, of the tightness in his chest. I seem to be improvising this as I'm reading it. Okay. The child cries, and his crying captures everyone's attention. The child is a victim. He believes someone else is to blame for his discomfort and waits for someone to come along and alleviate it. It always comes down to others. The child falls, hits his arm against the table, but does not see himself as responsible. It is the table's fault. So he goes on crying, throwing tantrums, waiting for someone to fuss over him and to take away any and every responsibility he may hold while showering him with love and attention. The child receives love and attention when he cries. He receives comfort. He receives protection. But this child grows up. And strangely enough, he does not change his way of thinking. As an adult, he continues to complain and whine about others, the bad guys, those who have supposedly hurt him. This grown-up child craves attention. He does not take responsibility for his actions. He never takes responsibility for anything that happens to him. He does not want to acknowledge that people attract only what is already in their heart. Those who are violent attract violence. Bad guys do not exist. Everyone and everything, without exception, is attracted by your energy. They are not bad. They are vehicles that heaven uses as a way of helping you experience the things you need to experience. Yeah, instead of acknowledging this once and for all, instead of changing your energy and taking responsibility for what you attract, even if it is only so that you can cleanse your heart of that frequency and stop attracting such events, you blame others, complain about your bad luck, and play the victim. Are you looking for attention? The child is now grown up and needs to change his attitude. He needs to be more mature and take control of the life he has chosen on his journey. Are you looking for attention? Change, look within, meditate, and find your essence, your true inner self. Come up here to find my unconditional love, and you will receive all the attention that exists in this lifetime. So I know this reads, and we can interpret this to read really against a society of people, against a color out there, against anybody who complains, right? Anybody who thinks they're the victim, anyone who feels like they're the victim. And the truth is of the matter is that there are people that are hurt by others in this world. There is bias in this world, all right? The goal that we have here is, how are we going to react to what's out there, and how are we going to change from the inside to address this? From the inside, as we explain what something is and use our voice to communicate it, and we take responsibility for how we show up, then things on the outside show up too. And I want to just bring light to this too. This other piece that I thought was interesting is that I listened to a woman speak, and she was a very well educated Black woman today. And I, I, I first of all was quite humbled at what she shared, because it has not been my reality. I've never seen it that way, but that's been her experience. And she was able to communicate it in such a way that I get it. And what she said was, this cop pulls me over. The cop is afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid for my life. The cop's afraid for his life. Everyone is afraid of what somebody. So if we don't get rid of the fear, whether there's it's the white people blaming the black people, the black people, if we don't get rid of that and take responsibility for our actions, our words, our thoughts, and we really take a look at it, and if there's something that needs to be cut out, we cut that out. So every side in this issue needs to take responsibility for their behavior, for their choices, and take a step into something that is, I don't want to say a middle ground, a solution that addresses this. What I have seen, and in my own little world, is the natural thing to blame, to blame, to blame, to infuriate, to get angry, how dare this, how dare this. And maybe that is the beginning of change, but it also can spin itself into being a victim. I'm a victim. I'm a victim of you. How dare you? And you can propagate. It continues. It grows. It's like it festers. You really want to change that victim thought process into you are a survivor, a thriver, a change maker, and you use strength from standing in your own power to make that change happen. Now, I don't ever want to judge what's happening, because I think it is meant to happen. Those who are looking for and are feeding on violence are going to attract more violence, which is what we need to, uh, in the majority, squash, because I think most people that are for justice are not for violence. So that there's that feeling is there, and that desperation is there, and people, yes, so it's calling our attention to it. So none of this is bad, none of this is wrong, and none of this is great either, because we're coming face to face with things that are not so pleasant. And I think that if every side if every side takes responsibility for their actions, and uses their heart and their to to reach others who are used to blaming, used to sitting in that angst, in that tightness, in that, and they're going to do something about it because they don't like it. And that just requires more of us to, I don't know how. I don't know how. Michelle Howe does not know how. You create that space, that awareness for them that there is another way. That we see the light that is within them and the potential that is within them. And this is, it's almost like raising a child. I mean, I had children, and they would do things definitely on purpose to aggravate me, on purpose. And I had to, and it was a cry for help with one of my children. Um, I had to lay down the law, but then I also had to keep, I had to hold him accountable, meaning I had to hold him accountable for his actions. And yet I kept feeding him with the image of his potential and who he really was. So I would do the opposite of what, I'm not saying to do that with our society, but I would do the opposite of what he wanted from me. Which he wanted me to berate him down and be upset with him. Okay. I would notice what he would do and I would redirect the attention somewhere else to someone else. And then at the same time, I would then feed him with what he did really well. Like I wasn't confirming that he was bad because that would have been the ultimate projection on him, and it would have become his identity. And you don't want to do that. You never want to project that something or someone is bad and they're doing wrong. You want to notice what they're doing, maybe lay down, this is not acceptable, right? And then and give them the opportunity and the visual of what their potential is, and give them you're building them up, and I think that's what needs to happen. So anyway, I don't get involved with with political things or racial things. It's not my thing, but I do care about people, and every single person out there feels, and it's important that we take responsibility for our part in in supporting or tearing down or acknowledging or projecting something that is harmful towards someone else, or something that's beneficial towards them as well. So I just think we need to be careful of our actions and our response at this point. um, Thank you, Spirit, for this for this wisdom today. um, I want to thank you guys for being here and active in the group. I do work with empaths, people that are awakening to it, really strong, purpose driven empaths that, honest to God, if you really want to make a change in the world and you're moving through and you're wondering why you're so emotional, why life seems so hard, why? It's because you are very easily absorbing the negativity, absorbing the emotions, getting yourself, you know, sometimes a high from these emotions, but most of the time, it's an important thing for you as a sensitive to acknowledge and understand the way you work. If you don't understand that, you're going to end up really spiraling out of control, and and not feeling whole and feeling out of sorts and wondering why you can't achieve the level of success that you want to, and maybe blaming or not blaming. And I'm asking you to step into like an evolutionary process, step into your gifts, step into understand what this dynamic is and why it's there. Why is it there? What is it teaching you? How do you serve in a higher capacity when you acknowledge what that is? Okay. So I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to you can schedule a free um, conversation, a free chat with me about you and where you're at and what your next steps might be in order to feel empowered and stronger within this lifetime, within using your gifts, within your purpose. How do you do that? How do you release negativity that's piled up in you and you feel heavy and down and depressed for days or anxious? That stuff piles up in us. I have one client that amazing, George is amazing to me. Um, Later 50s, but all his life an empath, not realizing this was going on, an abusive family home, alcoholism, all this stuff, right? And even worse than that, happened in his home, and much worse than that. And he absorbed it. And he actually even fought cancer at one point. Like, he has had quite a history. And then his wife died last year, and you know he finally had that much grief in him, and everything else on top of that, that it was time that he do something about this. So he gave me a call and we've been working together. And I'm telling you, leaps and bounds when you step into what this fully is. I don't even want to share how wonderful he is doing today. I mean, it's not like I don't want to share the details of how we've done that, but it's been natural, it's been easy, it's been eye-opening. It's been, his whole life is now redirected. What's left of his life, which he's got another 10, 20, 30 years possibly, stepping into his gifts, understanding himself, understanding the universe. So that's just a little inkling of where we're going and what's possible. So I will let you all go, and I want to thank you for being here, being in the group, and have a blessed day and a weekend. You know what to do, or you should know what to do, or if you don't know what to do, find the tools, speak to me about this, and start to upshift, up level, uplift yourself first, because you matter. Okay? Take it easy. Take care. You matter.